Warning: the following podcast contains irreverent humor, uneducated and exceptionally nerdy opinions, potential cursing, and plenty of love for the prequels. If any of the preceding offends you, please turn off your computer immediately, and may the Force be with you.
Why, you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf-herder!
You can't use that word! Only we can use that word!
There has been an awakening. Have you felt it?
You're tuned in to the Nerfherder Council, your source for Star Wars opinion, conversation, and debate, featuring your hosts, JT. Maybe that's who R2 saves. R2 has, of all the myriad tools that he has in his chest, he's got a dent puller. AJ.
I was so hoping this was going to be a family show, too.
Oh, my God. Steve.
I'll turn around with one planning. Maybe we'll have 5 of them. On this week's episode of the Nerfherder Council, we talk Kylo Ren versus Darth Vader on an emotional level, and we also talk about Darth Vader and how potentially badass he could be in Star Wars Rogue One.
This is the Nerfherder Council.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Nerfherder Council. I am your host, JT. With me on my left is AJ. On my right is Steve. And I thought we might start this episode out with a little bit of interesting feedback that we received. It's actually our very first piece of official show feedback. And AJ, you received a Facebook message. So what did it say exactly?
Well, I actually have to give a shout-out to the premier Star Wars podcast, Rebel Force Radio, for setting up their Facebook group. It really is a great place to go and just, shoot the breeze with other Star Wars fans and get a lot of feedback and knowledge. One of the fans on that group actually posted a question to the rest of the group asking if there's any other podcasts that they listen to. So, being probably the newest Star Wars podcast that we know of, I decided it was a great opportunity to maybe jump in there and get a plug in. We got to be shameless like that to build the listenership, after all.
Of course. And
I wasn't the only one who had this idea. Apparently, we're not the only ones who have this idea. So I got a couple names out of that. And one guy in particular, his name is John. He runs a podcast called The Blockade Runner. And they've done a total of 7 shows now. They started in October. And I decided to give them a listen because I figured, if they're just starting out the same way we are, it would be really interesting to see what 2 newbies to the podcasting world are doing with their shows. And as it turns out, they're pretty similar in format as far as there's 3 main people who have all been friends for a long time. They really know their Star Wars stuff, probably better than us, honestly. They're
probably.
Yeah, they're more knowledgeable. And I decided to give a quick browse because their shows are actually pretty good in length. They're about an hour and 45 minutes apiece. So I gave their premiere episode a listen, and then I gave their most recent episode a listen just to see how, in the span of 7 episodes, like how the show is
progression, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Because how many dry runs did we do before we started actually recording this thing for real? Like 3?
4 of them.
Yeah. Four dry runs, and I still feel like just from episode 1 to the 3rd actual recording that we did, just the actual shows we've released they've gotten more organic. I won't say not actually better because that's just kind of self-aggrandizing, but I think we're getting more in the groove as we get used to this format, and it's totally evident by this podcast that the Blockade Runner's doing the exact same thing. Like the show is just flowing so much better by episode 7, and it was really interesting. But unfortunately, he did have some good feedback for us. The one bit of feedback, I have to take the blame for this one. We mentioned emailing the show, and this will be fixed by the time this show hits the air, so I can tell you now. But we mentioned emailing the show, and I left that part off of the website and out of our broadcast. So
wait a minute, we don't have a contact page on the website?
No, we kind of forgot that little piece. So, yeah, the reason nobody's been emailing the show.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Email the show. We're not going to tell you how. So
that's fantastic.
I'll get
we
that
have
fixed.
the same amount of emails still regardless.
Probably, yeah. No one's missed it, that's for sure.
Everyone listening now is like, I wasn't going to email you, assholes.
Yeah, there we go. And there's our first edit of the night. All right.
It won't be like last time.
Yeah, thank you. We've actually employed the work of 2 editors now to get all the shows prepped because of John's little tirade on Han Solo. But I did want to thank John and give a shout out to his podcast. Again, it's called The Blockade Runner. You can find it on iTunes and all the usual podcast channels. They also have a website. It's blockaderunnerpodcast.com. I just figured it was good to get a shout out there. You know, he's helping us. He gave us a listen and some good, solid feedback. And, you know, go give those guys a listen, too, because they've got a lot of good insights. Frankly, they dwell on story points and plot points a lot more than we do. So if you like the details of the storytelling aspect of Star Wars, they're much more in tune with that. I think it's a good angle. And actually, I'd like to get some more messages going back and forth. Maybe we can collaborate sometime.
And if you like the ADD angle, stick with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
What's that? Something shiny?
So how many Star Wars podcasts do you guys listen to? Because I've tried a few, but I like them, but I've hit on a couple that basically just kind of read news articles and just rehash the news article. There's not really much opinion or, you know, dialogue with it. And I kind of prefer something that, you know, is a little more, like you used a perfect word earlier, organic. So how many do you guys listen to or have you checked out?
Well, I guess I'll take that one first. I think there's 2 or 3 that I keep up with on a regular basis. Rebel Force Radio is pretty much, we got to credit them for even giving us this idea in the first place. I mean, we all listen to them, and they seem to be having such a good time of it, and their conversations develop so well that I find myself wishing I could like stop and like jump into the conversation with them.
Right.
So that one's great for keeping up on the latest stuff, and they have really great inside access to the makers of Star Wars. So I love hearing all those sorts of interviews. I've checked out a couple more. Coffee with Kenobi is another big one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The thing that they've got going on is a good variety of topics. They've got little sub shows for comics and for Rebels and for the movies and all kinds of stuff like that. And I've tried a couple more. I dabble around, but honestly, I don't really have any more time than that to listen to podcasts throughout the week. So, I mean, once you're already doing 5 hours of other people's content and then trying to record 2 hours of your own, that's basically a whole day's worth of listening shot through. So I kind of got to turn off the headphones at that point and move on to something else. Steve, what about you?
I listen to Rebel Force. That's honestly it. I know that's a bad thing to try to get friends in this business and everything, but I don't stand near a radio long enough at work to constitute the podcast that I have on my iPod as it is, much less try to follow multiple other people. So I have Rebel Force, and then I got a couple of random MMA podcasts, and I got like the Joe Rogan podcast. And, like that's all that ever gets saved onto my iPod.
Now, do you steal those or do you get them legally?
They're all free.
They're legal.
You know where I was going with that.
Yeah, I know where you're going with that too, but we're
went to the same place you did on Facebook that I called you out on.
We're new and we're poor, so let's keep the lawyers off of us, please.
Yeah, well,
exactly.
You know,
I don't have 6 figures to cover that one.
I'm not the one that specifically mentioned it on air, so don't come crying to me.
And I'm also the only one that technically owns the new movie right now because I pre-ordered it.
Ooh, there you go.
Have they, by the way, speaking of, that's an interesting question because...
Yes, Disney Store is taking pre-orders on it.
So did you get the posters?
No, it's only on the website right now, and I should get my lithographs through the mail for it.
Oh, okay.
Sorry to cut you off. Has anybody confirmed that April 5th date?
No, that's still just getting tossed around.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
You know, I'm trying to remember because I saw the pre-order package at Walmart, and that's where I found out that you get the posters, they're in hand as a tangible thing right now for your $24.96 or whatever they're charging for the pre-order. But you're right. I don't think it actually mentioned specifically when the film was going to be released.
The date that is on all the news articles that I read was April 5th, but it's all speculation. And for me, I find it hard to believe that they're going to put that out that quickly. Because I mean, that's 2 months away already, and I mean it's still in theaters. It's still making money, so I would have to think they would keep it in theaters a little bit longer, wouldn't you?
Possibly, but they've got an interesting problem with the cadence now, and this is something that we might touch on later on. So I don't want to get too far into other show ideas that we've had, but they've got a packed schedule for this year. They've got the second half of Rebels airing right now. They've got Rogue One to ramp up for. So at some point, they're going to have to choke off the Force Awakens hype just to leave room for the other things to get their own spotlight.
I don't think that would really take away from the actual new content, though, because it's just, hey, buy what you already saw. But I mean, Rebels and Rogue One and stuff, that's all brand new. That's going to be their main focus. I mean, they've made their money off of the Force Awakens. I personally, I don't think that a marketing campaign for the Blu-ray release would take away from anything new.
I think you just covered it, though. Like you said, they've made their money off of the Force Awakens already. So I think they've made almost every penny they can with it in theaters. So you pump it out on the Blu-ray as quick as possible while, it's still a hot commodity, and you get everybody that.
It's not a bad way to look at it.
And they're not going to make the same kind of money they did as theater money, but they're going to cash in big time on it. It's going to be a quick hit. Like, it's not going to draw money for a long time on the Blu-ray release, but they're going to take a real big chunk at the beginning, and then, like you were saying, they're going to start pumping out all the new stuff. So it's like, let's get this thing on Blu-ray. Let's make the rest of our money that we're going to make on it, and let's start getting the rest of this stuff shoved down some throats too.
Yeah, if you think about it, the way the projects are lined up, once Force Awakens is done and they've made their money and done their releases on that, the entire focus of the rest of 2016 is all steeped around the episode 3.75 era. You've got Rebels, which is right before New Hope, and then you've got Rogue One, which is in the exact same time frame. So if they're going to make their money on the sequel trilogy era, they should keep the cadence very consistent. So right as the interest in the theatrical release wanes, maybe you get some audiobook sales or some tie-in material like that, and then get the Blu-ray out there right away so people don't forget about it. Because once they're onto that other era of Star Wars, you want to keep them there.
Are you going to pre-order it? Because I'm not, and I'll tell you why. I don't know what they're going to put out.
I just wanted the lithographs.
Oh, okay.
Honest to God, that's the only thing. Like, of course we're gonna own it, but I'm just like, oh, cool. We get cool little pictures with it from the Disney store. Like, I'm sold. We're gonna spend $30 on it regardless of where you buy it. So I'm like, a little bit of extra, cool.
See, I'm a special features guy, so I don't want to pre-order one and then find out that, there's also this like 3-disc thing that has the making of the movie and the deleted scenes, and I'm like, damn it, I already paid for the single disc edition.
They're gonna do that to you anyways. They do it on purpose.
That's what I'm waiting for.
They do it on purpose now. They'll release the first one, and then 3 months later, once you're done holding out, and you're like, I'm going to go buy it, a month after that, they're going to release the second version. And then
does Disney do that?
I don't think Disney does it that much, but I think just everybody as a whole right now starts doing that crap like a year apart.
Like the Lord of the Rings extended versions?
Exactly.
See, this is why it's great to live in a time that we do, though, because we have the digital releases and also the Blu-rays. So if you just want to get a copy of the movie that you can take with you anywhere, and I was actually wondering what the buying strategy was for you guys, because I love having all the movies on digital so I can fire them up on my phone whenever I want. That's why I got the 128 gigabyte model of the Galaxy S6, so I could hold the entire saga without having to worry about it.
That's why I got the 64 gig one for the exact same reason. But I also have the Big Lebowski on my phone.
Yes, and also at the same time, though, if you really want the best picture and sound quality for home video consumption, and I've got my 4K TV, so of course I do, I want that Blu-ray. So I'm probably going to be a double purchaser regardless, just because I like the portability factor, but also I've got the other 6 on Blu-ray. I'm not going to stop the collection now.
I'm the exact same way. I'll buy it digitally and on Blu-ray as well.
Yeah. Sorry. We're a physical copy family too. Like, it's something about being able to come down and grab, something off of a DVD shelf, and we're going to do it, but we do always buy the ones that are the Blu-ray, DVD, digital, like everything lumped into the
big all-in-one.
Yeah, because it's just like you said. Then we're putting it on the iPads, and then we got the physical copy too. And then you can Chromecast the thing if you want to just swipe up on your iPad and let it go straight to your television. It's
I love that because, well, actually, that's a specific reason why I ended up getting a Roku over at my girlfriend's house, because I wanted to show. Just on a whim one night, I wanted to show her son the saga, and it was a much quicker trip to go 5 minutes down the road to Target and get something I could stream off of our Google Play account than it was to drive all the way back to my place for the discs.
Right.
So it's great to have that anywhere. The whole accessibility of streaming the content off your online, I love it so much.
Yeah, things like YouTube and stuff like that now, too. Instead of having to pass your phone to somebody, you just hit that little Chromecast logo in the corner and it pops up on your television automatically, and so it's convenience, man.
This is all Greek to me.
Well, I will say
I'm so untechnological, it's not even funny.
it's true, but you should get on board, because I'll give you a perfect example. I've got my nice Samsung 4K TV, and I've got my Samsung Galaxy S6 phone. And I'm sorry, Disney, you're not going to get my $35 for Star Wars Rebels on Blu-ray, because I've got all the digital episodes and I can mirror my screen directly to my television. So all I have to do is just set my phone down, cue up the episode, and off it goes into beautiful Blu-ray quality on my 4K TV.
Disney, I've got good news for you. You got my $35 for the Blu-rays, and I bought all the episodes digitally. I have them both.
Yes.
I'm spending way too much money on it. I'll admit it. It's like $2.99 an episode, and I keep. It's always got that logo on top that says like buy the season for like $18.99, and I do the math. I'm like, that's like a little over 6 episodes worth, and there's going to be like 20 episodes. But then I think, well, what if I do the 19 and something messes up with it, and then I don't get the new episode immediately? What happens then?
Well, on the plus side, as soon as we get this episode posted, you'll probably get an email from them giving you like 10% off for your downloads now for pimping them like that.
Yeah,
I hope so, man. They're getting my money. That's for darn sure.
You know what they need to do, though? They need to prorate that amount. So if you've gone and bought like 6 episodes of a 22-episode season, then you can apply that towards the rest of the season if you want. Because otherwise, if you don't decide to buy that thing up front, you're stuck for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you exactly why I bought the Blu-ray. I mean, they suckered me in, being the special features guy that I am. I had all of the first season already, and I'm walking through Best Buy, and I had some gift cards to use, and I was like, oh, Rebels Season 1 on Blu-ray. I wonder if there's anything cool in here. So I pick it up, and I'm reading through, and it's like special features. I'm like, all right, artwork and storyboards and all this, and Rebels recap from Star Wars Celebration. I was like, take my money, it's Celebration. I want to see Celebration.
And we were there, actually.
Exactly.
It's like $45 for 5 minutes.
It was like 6 minutes long. And of course, you know me, I'm not paying attention to anything on the screen. I'm looking in the background like, am I there? Am I in the Star Wars Blu-ray? Is that me?
That's my hat.
I want to see the thing I already saw. Take my money.
Is that one of those days when I was drunk walking around eating a sandwich?
That was all 4 days.
No, it was not all 4 days. There was 2 days I was
all
perfectly
4 nights.
fine.
You're right. You had nachos on Friday, so no sandwich.
No. Did I have nachos? I don't remember what the hell I had. I just remember the one day I was still feeling it from the night before, and I was like, I got to cut this out. The first beer vendor we walked past, I was like, I'll have one beer, please. When in Rome, what the hell? I'm on vacation.
For all of our listeners out there, I'll just let you in on a little secret. The Wednesday night before the show opened, we saw the banners hanging from the convention center at 5 a.m. because we had not gone to bed yet. And by 5:30 a.m., I was literally dragging your main host into the hotel room because he was an unconscious mess on the hotel hallway floor.
I still don't know why I fell asleep outside the room. I think I couldn't get the key to work.
I think it was because it was 5:30 in the morning and we had been up for 24 straight hours.
Yeah, but why would I go to sleep right outside our door?
Did you go to sleep or pass out?
It was both. I really think I couldn't get the key to work, which, of course, all you do is swipe the thing.
I was going to say, nobody uses physical keys anymore. How tough was it?
I was probably trying to put a key into the lock somehow, or a credit card, or, I was hammered because we
Using
we were
a Dave
drinking
and
with
Buster's card trying to get into your room.
All right, look, I was doing shots with Ray Park, man. What do you want? Ray Park was holding court. He was buying everybody all these shots, and I went over just to introduce myself. And I asked him, I said, hey, man, can I get a picture? He goes, of course you can't. Oh, just kidding. Whatever his accent is. And then he's like, you want a shot? I was like, yeah, all right. So next thing you know, we're doing shots. And
Was that before or after you had to clean out the inside of your pants?
See,
or did you not even bother at that point?
Yeah, right. I was good about that part of it.
See, I remember that story a little differently because, as I recall, we tried to go over and buy him a shot, and he flipped the script on us and insisted that just for being so nice to offer, he was going to buy us the shot.
Well, that's what happened, but then you missed.
Love that guy.
When you missed the part where he bought me many more shots.
Oh, okay. That's why I was the one pulling you into the room.
Yeah. So technically, that night really wasn't my fart. I was trying to say it wasn't my fault. It was Darth Maul's, but instead, I've just got that YouTube Imperial March, that dude farting the Imperial March on YouTube in my head. So, but anyways, to get back on track, the first thing I wanted to
Have we even been on track yet?
No, we have not. To quote Jar Jar, no, not really. No.
Let's just get on track then,
Exactly.
not back onto it.
Well, I thought for this episode we would kind of like talk a little bit about the dark side, because we've talked a lot about Rey and the Skywalkers and Kenobis and stuff, and
holes in Han Solo's chest.
yeah,
and nip slips.
yeah, we've done that too. But so I found a couple of articles. I'm going to start with one, and it'll kind of lead into the second one. So I wanted to get your guys' opinion on this, because I read it and I disagree with it. So I'm interested to see what you guys think about this. So I will read this to you, and it's already hilarious. It's titled Star Wars: Why the New Villain is Better Than Darth Vader. And of course, in big letters underneath it, spoilers ahead for Star Wars: The Force Awakens. Can people stop with that already? It came out on December 18th, for God's sakes. It's the first week of February. It's been out for, 7 weeks now? 8 weeks? Enough with the spoiler alert. If someone doesn't know what happened, screw them. Go see Star Wars, man. Well, enough of that spoiler
Obi-Wan
alert.
dies in A New Hope. Spoiler!
Yeah, if you're still
Right.
interested in what's going on in this movie and you haven't seen it in the first 8 weeks, you're probably not that interested.
Exactly. All right, so the article reads as follows. With Darth Vader, the original Star Wars trilogy gave the world one of the most iconic movie villains of all time. Many fans feel that the prequel trilogy ultimately did the character a disservice by demystifying his backstory and fall to the dark side, but George Lucas's films succeed in establishing Anakin/Vader, as a tragic figure trapped between the dark and light sides of the Force, less a menacing terror and more a victim of the horrors of this seemingly endless battle of good and evil. In Star Wars: The Force Awakens, Kylo Ren is similarly positioned as a conflicted soul who has modeled his appearance after his grandfather, Vader himself. Also like the original trilogy's villain, he is ultimately revealed to be torn apart over his actions and answers to a mysterious overseer that runs the regime aiming for complete control over the galaxy. However, as portrayed in The Force Awakens, Ren could ultimately wind up being a more fascinating character than his grandfather ever was. The film only reveals that Ren, whose real name is Ben Solo, was being trained as a Jedi by Luke before turning against his master and joining up with Supreme Leader Snoke, a character who has already spawned many theories of his own. What hasn't yet been disclosed are the circumstances surrounding that decision and, in fact, Ren's motivation in embracing the dark side and ultimately slaying his own father. At one point, we see him consulting with the spirit of his grandfather, or at least Vader's charred helmet, but there's little reason to think that Ren is necessarily exactly what he seems. Let's change into the next page. Much like Luke, this new character seems tortured by his heritage. His role in the Knights of Ren notwithstanding, he is more calculating and indeed more passionate than Vader ever was. That's the thing that got me. A conflicted young man masquerading as a monster. This element of the character has already been brilliantly parodied in the Emo Kylo Ren Twitter account. Unlike Vader, who was largely under the control of his master, Ren clearly has an agenda of his own and something to prove, though the details of that will likely not be fully realized until Episode 9 rolls around in 2019. Snoke says toward the end of the film that Ren's training isn't even complete yet, and as the character's true arc unravels, he has the potential to become even more of a powerful nemesis for our heroes, especially Rey, whose own origin is shrouded in mystery, and a more compelling figure to drive the saga forward in upcoming sequels. At this stage, his journey is more emotionally driven than Vader's ever was, and in a single film, Ren has emerged as perhaps the most interesting, complex villain to ever appear in the Star Wars saga. I call BS.
Good summary.
Yeah, how are they saying that Kylo Ren in one movie is already better than Vader as a character? There's no way. And he's already set up to have a much more emotional, kind of roller coaster of a character arc. I don't buy that at all.
Well, wasn't the whole point of Anakin's turn to the dark side completely emotion based from the get-go?
Yeah, that's why I said at one point that I didn't agree with it, because it wasn't just, okay, I'm a bad guy. Like, Kylo Ren right now is kind of like, well, I think Darth Vader's really bad, so I'm going to be bad. He's like a follower.
Well, Anakin was very emotional. Vader, not so much, at least not till around episode 6 or so, but...
Yeah, I think I would say episode 5, personally. Because in that one, he's just a complete, that was the darkest Vader.
Yeah, like, A New Hope Vader was just... He was just there. He was just a bad guy.
Right.
You know, he didn't give two craps about anything. But yeah, the entire turn of his was all emotion from the end of episode 1 all the way through him crying and screaming at Obi-Wan while he was a charred up mess on whatever the hell, Sullust, right?
No, you've been playing too much Battlefront.
Yes, I have.
Wow.
Mustafar.
That's it.
Yeah, if the only way you can even make a fair comparison between the two villains at this point is to take them from their first movie that they debuted in. I mean, you got a 6-film character arc for Vader, and you've only got the opening stages of this Kylo Ren character to go off of.
Well, and the guy's basing his article on what Vader was over 6 movies.
Yeah.
So even if you're going to go episode 4 versus episode 7, I mean, it's easier to say that Ren is going to be a more emotional character based on that, because you already know what came before him. Whereas Vader in episode 4 in 1977, no one knew what he was. He was just the bad guy.
Ren covered about all 3 of the prequel movies as far as emotion goes for Anakin in episode 7 by itself. But yeah, Darth Vader, if we're going 4 to 7, yeah, it's...
Yeah, he did.
Darth Vader had the emotional range of a friggin' rock in episode 4, so yeah, of course. But
And the thing that I don't agree with is that he says, well, Ren, depending on what happens in the future, could be the most interesting villain of the saga. No, he won't. They've already kind of set it up that it's a family struggle. His emotions are a family struggle. We've seen that. So if it was an original thing, okay, fine, but they're already setting it up to be kind of like a rip on what we've already seen. So how is that more interesting than Vader?
Well, the other thing that makes it tough is that Kylo Ren is not the first villain that we've seen. Vader had nothing before him to go off of. So every bit that they did with that character was an original new thing. Now he laid the groundwork. The universe itself is so much more mature now that they have so much more to draw from to craft this Kylo Ren character from. So yeah, he's got all these things that he could do, but it's because he has all these jumping off points that were created through the Vader saga.
And I think, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking too, because it's, again, Vader kind of set the standard for what the evil bad guy in Star Wars is. And like you said, Steve, it's an emotional roller coaster for him, but it wasn't really necessarily a family thing. It was, well, I mean, it kind of was because of the whole Luke thing in A New Hope and Empire and Return of the Jedi. But in the prequels, it was, well, I'm really into Padme. I'm in love with her, and I'm trying to save her life. So it wasn't as simple as, well, this is a blood relation, and that's kind of what they're setting up with Kylo Ren, and it's something that's already been done.
Yeah, I don't know. The whole article kind of reads like clickbait, where we don't know enough about Kylo Ren right now to really get a full idea of what his character is going to be. So this guy's just saying, hey, here's this new exciting character, and who knows where they're going to go with it? I just love the way it's starting out. Well, okay, what if they completely stumble in 8 and 9 and turn this guy into a total chump?
Yeah, the potential is there. The potential's limitless for what they can do for him as a character, but like you said, it's all based off of what we learned from the original trilogy and the prequels and Vader / Anakin and all that. So he's the gold standard. So you gotta, of course, you're gonna try to make Ren better than that, but to what extent? And then the emotional thing, it honestly doesn't make any sense unless he's really just basing it off of A New Hope or Vader in general, and not so much Anakin Skywalker.
That's what I thought too. And it kind of came off to me as it was someone who didn't like the prequels because he had that little bit of a teeny dig in there. And so to say that Kylo Ren's arc is going to be more emotional than Vader's, that completely takes the prequels out of it.
Yeah, I was hoping you would actually hang on that first paragraph where he talks about how the prequels completely changed the shape of Vader as a character, because it really did. He was a monster who was redeemed based on the original trilogy alone, and then he did become a tragic character when you introduced the prequel trilogy into his overall story arc.
And I've said this all the time. One of the things I love the most about the prequels is that aspect of the story, because it's easy to just have a bad guy who's a bad guy. But they took Vader, who was, okay, well, he's my son, so that was emotional, but they made his turn to the dark side something better than, well, he was just a jerk and then he decided to be a bad guy. He was this bratty idiot kid, and instead of just, he turned to the dark side because he was pissed off about not being on the Jedi Council or whatever. There was more to it than that. And even though it was like a love story, which people complain about, I mean, it's relatable. I mean, it's something that, people do. And the way they played the irony up of, he was doing that to save Padme's life, but instead that's what ended up killing her. I like that part of it. So to completely discredit it in the character arc of Vader, I totally disagree with.
Well, Steve, you're the big Darth Vader guy on the show, so how do you feel about it? Do you feel like the prequel trilogy, not to get too far off the comparison track, but how did you feel about the prequels and their treatment of the Vader character?
And I've said it before about what we talked about with episode 7, so it's a thing I hinge on a lot. It's one of those it needed to be done things. Like John said, you just look at Vader in 4, and he's just the evil. He's the top of the food chain of jerks in the galaxy, but the prequels needed to be there to let you know why he is the way he is, and you can't even the article is still a little weird in the fact that when I just said that we have unlimited potential for Ren, Vader's story isn't even completely told yet. Between what we can see in Rogue One with Rebels, he could be still a jerk, but a completely emotional jerk, that leads to this blind nothing that we see in episode 4 that just doesn't give a crap about anything anymore. So you see this completely emotional character in 3, and the last time we see him, he's screaming no because of Padme, and then you see him as a jerk in 4. But now we got Rebels. Are we going to gradually see this emotional character turn into
like a descent?
Yeah, this stone-faced piece of crap in the galaxy, or is he? So I mean, again, it's hard to completely go off of what the article says. Like I said, unless we're basing it purely off of episode 4 versus 7 or something, but to claim Vader versus Ren when Vader's story isn't even done yet is actually kind of a tough comparison to begin with.
Yeah, and they're going to be writing additional stories for both characters, so it's interesting to kind of revisit this maybe later on after we know more about both. But Disney has been doing a lot of writing stories that do fill in those gaps between 3 and 4, Lords of the Sith being a primary example, and yeah, they do seem to really love investigating how this completely emotionally driven character goes from screaming for his dead wife in episode 3 to being a burnt-out, soulless husk of a man in episode 4. I mean, that's such a drastic change. Like, how do you just die inside like that?
Yeah, you see how he was at the end of 3, and the next time you see him, in A New Hope, the complete day and night change of those two characters is insane. So there's a lot of story in there that we need to know about first.
And that's why I completely disagree with the point of view of this article. And, to say, like, how did they phrase it? Something about it's, the possibilities are limitless with what they can do with Ren's character. Not really, because they already painted themselves into a corner. It could be limitless if they wouldn't have tied him to Rey or the Skywalker clan. If he was just a bad guy who happened to stumble upon, like, Sith lore, and, we don't know how he got Vader's helmet, but let's say he got that somehow, and that's his ideology. He's
eBay.
Yeah, space eBay, right? But yeah, I mean, if he just, if the Legends of the Sith were his ideology and he was completely unrelated to a Skywalker or something, okay, then you could say his possibilities as a character are limitless because he's not tied to that lineage. But because they've already tied him to that lineage, that character is going to be compared to Vader. So to say he's going to be more interesting than Vader is a real stretch as far as I'm concerned.
I can see that too, of what you're saying now. I think if they would not have had the big Solo last name reveal in episode 7, we could have all been sitting here for another year and a half trying to figure out where Kylo Ren comes from and all that. Like, we could have speculated Skywalker, Solo, whatever, but yeah, you're right. Kind of tossing the end of the storyline essentially, and not leaving any backstory anymore to Kylo Ren. Yeah,
it is the tail wagging the dog a little bit, but they got that right out of the way right as soon as you see the opening scene of Force Awakens, and Lor Santeca just keeps harping on it, like, I know where you come from, like, I know your family. Like, okay, well, we know this guy's got a backstory that we're definitely going to be hearing about. They didn't hide that one at all.
Yeah, and they could have kept it there, and like I said, we could have just been speculating, not even found out any kind of reveal till 8, maybe even 9, whatever, but...
Oh, that would have been really cool, actually, to be that like heavy-handed about it, and then he cuts the dude down who has all the information that the audience wants.
Right.
That would have been really cool, and that would have been also cool because they could have introduced the plot point of Kylo trying to bury his past that way so no one could find out.
Yeah, and then you think about the last scene in the movie with, you still could have done Rey and Luke there, and then we would all been leaving the theater thinking, where's Rey come from and where's Kylo come from? Instead of this whole trying to figure out Rey's lineage, we would have had a lot more to talk about trying to figure out multiple characters instead of that. We know everybody now. We know Finn's lineage of basically being born into being a stormtrooper. We know Rey's lineage, or not Rey, Ben's lineage now. It's would have been nice to have a little more speculation walking out of the theater from episode 7, huh?
They really did fast track Kylo Ren's character arc in that respect. Like, they hit on a lot of the same beats as Vader's, but they did it all in one movie. Vader, like you said, starting with episode 4, he was just a villain, one-dimensional. Then in Empire Strikes Back, they introduce a little bit of humanity insofar as he remembers he has a kid. It wasn't really made clear that he wanted to reach out to Luke because he wanted to connect as a father to a son. He was just realizing that Luke was a path to greater power. Like he says, the Emperor has foreseen this, and so he's trying to get Luke on his side to overthrow the Emperor. You're like, okay, he's a bad guy looking to step up the corporate ladder. Then in episode 6, you get the sympathetic side where there's cracks in the armor, so to speak. Then we get all the backstory in 1, 2, and 3. Kylo Ren, we jump straight to, holy crap, this guy's powerful. Then we get to, well, wait a minute, nope, people can stand up to him. Then he cries that there's still good in him. Snoke admits that there's a pull to the light. All the plot points of 6 movies got just handled right out of the way. Maybe that's the point of the article, too, is that they got all that done, so now wherever they go next is going to be new territory because they've covered the entire 6-film saga of Vader in one movie for this character.
Easily got 4, 5, and 6 out of it, and we don't know what happened before training with Luke, so whoop-de-doo, we could probably maybe make an episode 1 with the air quotes, about him being a child before he starts getting Jedi training, but that's about it. But we really did get the original trilogy worth of...
Well, you've got to assume he wasn't born evil, so there is a story to be told about how this boy who grew up in a Jedi family with Force sensitivity and Luke and Leia as influences in his family turned to the dark side. So there is something to go on there and be told.
So if they made stories like that, they would technically be considered the prequels of the sequel trilogy. Would Star Wars fans crap on those prequels because they would be very different from the sequel trilogy? Or would they, because it's attached to the sequel trilogy, which makes them forget about the prequels, would they just accept them as good?
They crap on them because the only way to pull that off at this point would be to make episode 6.5, and we would be crapping on that instantly if we knew we were going to the theaters.
How would
to
they
see
number
episode.
it?
That's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Like, as soon as they go
Episode 6.3. Like,
this is episode 6.5 and episode 6.73. They'd start dropping Star Wars movies like they do Windows updates.
Well, why not? I mean,
Nice.
Disney's done it before. I mean, they had Lion King 1.5.
Definitely.
that's a good point. I didn't think about that.
Disney is good for straight to DVD, that we don't even know about. Like one of these days we're just going to be walking around there like, when the hell did Star Wars episode 7.4 come out? And who the hell are these people that are in it?
The sequel trilogy, they're just going to basically turn the sequel trilogy into like the extended universe, where between the movies there's going to be like 18 different, instead of novels, they'll just make like straight to DVD movies, like the like the American Pie movies.
I think
there's like the 4 regular American Pie movies, but then there's like 8 offshoots.
And then there's the straight to Netflix ones too.
That's when you know it's really gone downhill. They don't even bother with physical product; they just make it and then digitally put it up on television. Like,
We
here,
don't
watch this
even want to
crap.
make time to make labels to put inside of a DVD slip. We're just
like
going to put it right on Netflix.
It's like a local band that's too broke to actually produce their stuff. They just record it and chuck it out on the internet. Like, take our music.
there's still watermarks on the footage because they didn't pay for the actual editing software.
Right? It's like in someone's backyard or something.
The next Star Wars movie is a live stream.
No, this is
It's all one shot like
God.
Birdman. All right, now nobody make a mistake for the next 2 hours and 15 minutes, or we got to start all over again.
Buffering.
you guys are really terrifying me because these sound like plausible ideas.
Well, don't forget, we've already given them some story ideas in our previous episodes of the podcast, so why not just keep going with it?
Yeah, when is our check showing up anyway?
I don't know. I'm still working through the paperwork on that one.
Well, everything I've learned from where we should get our checks is from Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, so we should get our movie check any day now.
Right?
And then we're going door to door to beat up everybody that talks bad about us.
So, bringing up Vader in terms of saying, there's more story to tell, that actually leads into the second article that I wanted to read to you guys, because you, Steve, are going to love this, because this is going to be awesome. So, this was from makingstarwars.net, and it is a little bit of juicy tidbits about Rogue One. It is titled "A Classic Villain Will Have Some Action in Rogue One: A Star Wars Story." This article is a little shorter. The article below on Rogue One: A Star Wars Story may contain spoilers from the upcoming film. Read on at your own risk. Please do not openly discuss these rumors on social media as to not spoil the movie for anyone that wants to remain spoiler-free. Shut up with the spoiler-free crap.
Well,
We're
we're not social media. It's a podcast.
There's no spoilers in here, man. Okay. Anyway, sorry.
It's all speculation.
Exactly.
Really, if it's not confirmed, can it really be a spoiler?
Well, that's an interesting conversation, because remember when we talked about episode 7 and I said that I read some stuff like 2 years ago that turned out to actually be in the movie, and you said that's why you avoid articles like that, because you don't want to, just in case.
Well, you never know who actually has information and who's just speculating.
Actually, by your own logic, you should go upstairs right now and just leave the podcast for the rest of the podcast.
I'm already aware of this article, so
Okay, well, I'm reading it. So, Darth Vader will have action sequences in Rogue One: A Star Wars Story. We've been told that Darth Vader has had several suits of armor built for the film. There is a hero suit, which is a direct copy of the suit we've seen in Star Wars: A New Hope, down to the lenses in the eyes, which technically means they should be red. The most interesting part is that stunt suits have been built, which indicates Darth Vader will in fact see action. The action sequences filmed are unknown, but there was work pitching the different ways Darth Vader could kill rebels on a battlefield with the Force and his lightsaber. The storyboard quote-unquote pitches showed decapitated rebels, people being dismembered by Vader throwing his sword, levitating bodies to make human shields, and so on. The art was more violent than what we've seen from Darth Vader do excuse me, let me do that again. The art was more violent than what we've seen Darth Vader do on screen before. I wish there were more details on the setting of the ground battle, but the most we could get was that it was a smoky battlefield. That is awesome.
Yeah,
So-
that will
that
be
would be
great.
amazing.
That is trouble.
Everything you just said, though, sounds like the very opening sequence of the first Force Unleashed game, though.
Yeah, but that's not considered canon now.
Exactly, yeah, but that sounds exactly like that when you start the game and you're automatically Vader, and I think you're on Endor, or you're on. It's been a while since I played it.
Oh, if only
Yeah,
your brother was here.
or
Your brother would
Kashyyyk,
know.
I believe.
Right.
But yeah, you're basically just going and you're mauling everything that's
Why did
in your way to finding Starkiller.
right?
Yeah, so that would be great if this movie, if Rogue One is going to kind of have a very, very, very mean, Darth Vader. I'm all for that, man.
It would certainly set up how he is in Episode 4. I mean, I love that. I mean, why do you think it would? Why do you think that potentially could be a bad thing?
The reason I say that could be trouble is because Darth Vader is a really crappy fighter compared to Anakin Skywalker. The stuff that we saw Vader doing in the original trilogy was nothing compared to what we saw Anakin doing in the prequels. I always assumed it was because he got so beat up and damaged that he just didn't have that much control as he did when he was an entire human instead of part machine, or more machine now than man, according to Obi-Wan.
Well played.
So if we're going to see him kicking all kinds of ass in the suit, then it raises the question, why wasn't he able to do that in the original trilogy? They run the risk of having a huge disconnect here.
I just think about real life, though, with how the suit might have been created in the late 70s, that there was just not any mobility to that, kind of like the stormtrooper outfits, how, like we brought up before, that they're never running, that they have 6 points of articulation, even though they're humans, because of how bad the armor is technically made.
Yeah, that's a bit of movie magic right there, but from a story standpoint, it doesn't make sense if he can move this well in Rogue One. Why, as when A New Hope rolls around, he's just maybe he's just toying with Obi-Wan because Obi-Wan's old as dirt, but still, we don't see him doing anything like that in the original movies, and I would want to know why if we see him doing those sorts of things in Rogue One.
Steve already said it. Real life, he's older.
He's not that much older, though. We're talking about a movie that runs right up to the start of Episode 4.
Okay, but even still, I mean,
What did he have a stroke in the 6 years of the original trilogy?
he's all charred up and stuff. He could be suffering damage. I mean, he's got
From something that happened 15 or 20 years before the movie?
Who knows? But it can be explained by he aged.
Not that much, not that soon.
And besides, if you're just decapitating people and throwing your sword through them and levitating people to use as a human shield, it's not like he's doing ninja stuff, dude.
They wouldn't need a stunt suit for that. They did all that in the original trilogy.
Okay, true.
I will give you one thing, though. That stunt suit is going to have to be on point. Because, like we were just bringing up with the mobility and stuff, if that stunt suit's really going to have to be on point to not draw attention to, hey, why isn't this shoulder armor there? Why isn't this there? Kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
that's going to be a tough move for them to try to make the actual Darth Vader suit very mobile to try to get away. Yeah, functional to try to get away with stunt scenes.
That's got to be so tricky. I've been doing some research on my next 501st costume, and I just want to go for the original TK. I mean, you got to start with the classics. And what I'm finding is there are tons of variations in those suits, because there were the hero costumes for the stormtroopers, for the ones that were just standing around getting close-ups, and I'm talking New Hope. I'm not even getting into Empire Strikes Back or Jedi, because there are variations in those too. And there's also the stunt suits, and you have to specify when you're applying for 501st membership with these costumes which one you're going for, because they didn't, like you said, they didn't have the technology to make the hero suit and the stunt suit look identical, because you just could not get the materials that were durable enough for stunts to look good enough for the hero shots. So now they're going to have to build the second suit, and they're going to have to find some way, because we're in an era of 4K and 70 millimeter and frame by frame sort of stop and go, dissection of every single scene. How they're going to make Vader look good in motion with a suit that's made out of something different than what they're comparing to the original 1977 hero costume, that's going to be one tall order for them.
Honestly, I don't even think you need the stunt suit. I think if you just go into Rogue One, like we were talking about, with an emotional Darth Vader that is just hell-bent on destruction at this point, kind of like when I brought up the Force Unleashed, when you used to use the Force and you'd lift the guys up in the air, and then when you could just kill them if you wanted to, you'd always hit that button so you could impale them with the lightsaber instead.
Love that move. Love that move.
So if you just really make this really emotional Darth Vader that's just really hell-bent on destruction, you could still keep him in the hero costume and just have him use the hell out of those Force powers and just start destroying everything in his path, and that would be just as cool. Because like I said, we didn't get any of that in the original trilogy. He was relying more on, just, I don't even want to say being not slow or relying on.
It was all the Force.
Yeah, he was using, actually, for lack of a better thing, mind control. He was using the fear of, hey, I'm Darth Vader. He didn't really have to show off Force powers or lightsaber ability or anything, because he was already, number 2 on the totem pole underneath Palpatine on the strongest guy in the galaxy. So, fear alone was probably enough to get away with everything, especially with Rebels and everything back then in the original trilogy.
Well, fear did keep the local systems in line, so But no, I couldn't resist.
Dynamite drop in, man.
I had to. I don't see. Me personally, I understand what you're saying. Like, okay, why didn't he do that in the original trilogy? And like we hit on, at the time you couldn't really do much of that, so that's a practical explanation. But for me, I really don't have a problem with them just saying, okay, he got older, or he didn't have to do that as much. It's a simple explanation, a simple enough explanation for me to buy it, because I'm telling you, if they're going to have Darth Vader doing the moves that we saw in The Force Unleashed, I am going to eat that up like crazy. And damn well.
Maybe it's what happened in Rogue One is the reason why he doesn't have to do that stuff. It is what struck that fear into the rest of the universe.
This could be the explanation of why people are like, oh my God, that guy is the galaxy's biggest badass. And damn well that if they come out and this stuff is actually happening, that he's killing people like that, that movie is going to sell a ton of tickets.
I do like that idea.
When Rogue One gets that rated R rating, yes.
Oh, dude,
it'd be so awesome.
Honestly, if
you're decapitating people, oh, great,
that'd be amazing.
Bring it.
And seriously, and I mean, I know I'm probably reaching here, but I really think that if they have if they have Vader and he's doing that kind of thing, and people go to the pre-release, like the premiere, I couldn't think of the word for a second, like the premiere of it, and there's people talking about it, that it's equally as good as Episode 7. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised if Rogue One turns out to be bigger than Episode 7, even though it's like the second biggest movie of all time. Because with Darth Vader, I mean, seeing Vader, people already want to see more Darth Vader. Everyone wants to see more Darth Vader. And then if you have Darth Vader doing all this crazy murdering, like, everyone's going to want to see that. Who doesn't want to see that?
Well, I definitely love the idea of seeing an original trilogy film made now, just to know that the people who are the stewards of the Star Wars saga now can still tell stories in that time space and make them fit in and feel and work as well as the original trilogy. I don't like that idea that they had to move to the sequel trilogy because if they draw too close of a comparison to what came before, they're just not going to live up. I would love to be blown away by Rogue One.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, because this one I know is an original story. Like I'm already nervous about Episode 8 for reasons we've talked about in the past, that I'm really afraid they're going to rehash more stuff we've already seen, like what happened with Episode 7. And in my Star Wars universe, in my head, I want to see something new. One of the things, again, that I loved about the prequels was it was something different. It was a different story, and I really liked that. So Rogue One, I'm already super excited for, because I know it's going to be something different. And I'm just pumped up for it. And especially if you're throwing in Darth Vader just being, kicking the hell out of everybody, I am all in on that. All in.
We all came to be, you two obviously not being brothers, but I came to be friends with you guys over pro wrestling. And even to this day in 2016 now, when are the biggest pop points for those guys? When they bring back The Rock and Steve Austin.
Excellent example.
You throw in brand new kick-ass Star Wars in Darth Vader's music hits and comes to do the run-in. How awesome is that going to be for everybody? And spoiler, even though we're starting to hate that word aside,
right?
If we know months ahead of time of the kind of Darth Vader we're going to see in that movie, I think all it's going to do is help.
Oh yeah, by far.
Plus, I love that here it is, 2016. They're putting on a movie with costumes and storylines from the mid-'70s, and if they can put out something that stands up to those, I just love that. So instead of those movies and that era of Star Wars being frozen in time as a relic at this point, that it's still fresh and modern now and still resonates with audiences, that is what really proves the timelessness of Star Wars.
I think it could potentially be better than Episode 7. I don't know if it'll be as big as Episode 7, because something tells me Disney and everybody's not going to force Rogue One down our throats the way they did Episode 7 with merchandising and stuff like that. But I think it could easily, just from the little bit we know about it right now, be a better movie than that. And like us being original trilogy, guys too, it's all of us, we're going to grab onto that thing real easy. Maybe the people that haven't gotten into it, except for Episode 7, all the noobs coming around, they're probably not going to care that much, might not even go see it. But this is the kind of movie that's going to cater to the rest of us. Now, how I said Episode 7's not our Star Wars anymore, Rogue One is going to be classified as our Star Wars.
Definitely. And see, I actually kind of disagree, because I think if they weren't trying to put it down our throat and get everybody out to this thing, they wouldn't put Darth Vader in it. Because they would just say, here's these new characters, here's this story, we're just going to tell you how they got the Death Star plans. We don't need Vader to tell that story. They're putting Vader in there because they know that people want to see Vader, and that's going to put butts in the seats. That's all there is to it. I mean, it's a Star Wars movie, so it would still be huge. But they know when you put Darth Vader in there that he's going to carry that whole movie. It's going to be like Han Solo was in Episode 7, where he just stole every scene that he was in. He was fantastic, and it's that character that everyone loves so much that it's, like we've said so many times, it brings you back to when you're a little kid. And Vader is everyone's favorite bad guy. Everyone's favorite bad guy. Even though Han Solo's my favorite character, just seeing Darth Vader running around doing stuff, I'm paying to see that. And they know that people are going to do that. That's why it's the exact same thing of how when they started talking about Episode 7, one of the very first pieces of information we ever heard was Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Harrison Ford are coming back, because they knew that even the fringe people would hear that and go, oh, well, now I got to see it. And so this is the same thing with Darth Vader. I mean, this Darth Vader stuff's leaking out. It won't be too much longer before we find out for sure if he's in it, because that's going to be the selling point.
I see where you're going with that. Having the big three announced so early on in the production of Episode 7, it legitimized it. The same way that, you're going to get people to come out to a Star Wars movie without Vader, but as soon as you hear that Vader's in it, and James Earl Jones has already been doing the voice on Rebels, so you know that they're not going to recast that. It legitimizes Rogue One as a movie that you need to see, because if the original people are back in it, then that means that it's important enough to go see.
It's free promotion, because when you tell somebody, hey, Darth Vader's in the new movie, they're instantly going to tell a ton of people, oh my God, Darth Vader's in it. And it's this monstrous grassroots thing where everybody finds out that Darth Vader's in the movie, even if they don't care. It's exactly what happened with the big three in Episode 7. People that didn't even care were like, oh, I heard Han Solo's going to be in the movie. I heard Luke Skywalker's coming back. They knew. I mean, people that don't really care about Star Wars knew that they were coming back. So it's free marketing, it's free promotion, it's everything they want. It just builds this thing up, and they don't got to spend a dime to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When we go see Rogue One, as soon as
You said if. That's funny.
Yeah. I just had to think about it. Do they do a scroll for these movies? You think they go to the scroll, or
they
you think
have
we
to.
don't get one because it's not an episode?
They have to.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do. You cannot have a Star Wars movie without a scroll. It just can't happen. They did it in the Clone Wars movie cartoon.
Yeah, well, that's a little different case, though, because we're talking Disney Star Wars versus George Lucas Star Wars. There was a formula established, and they specifically said that just by doing these movies, they're breaking that formula and they're branching out into what a Star Wars movie can be. So I wouldn't count on having a scroll. We're not necessarily going to have the fanfare right off the bat. Maybe, maybe not. I mean, the whole direction of the thing, if you're talking about concept art with decapitated people and stuff like that, that's so violent compared to what Star Wars usually is. Obviously, they're going to start taking some risks that we're not used to seeing. And breaking away from the episodic format is a great way to do that.
I disagree. You cannot have a Star Wars movie. The fans would revolt, and starting with you, you know damn well if you sit down in that theater and it's go bah, and Star Wars goes off into the distance and it comes up Rogue One with the crawl, you know it's you have to have that to let everyone know you're in a Star Wars movie. That's just part of a Star Wars movie. It's part of it. It's like it'd be like having a Star Wars movie without a lightsaber. You can't do it.
Well,
there has to be a lightsaber. There has to be a crawl.
Well, we already know that John Williams is not doing the music for it, correct?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so we're already breaking one of the hallowed traditions of Star Wars right there.
But how many fans of Star Wars actually know that? I mean, the big fans do, and a lot of the fans do, but it's not like how many people know who Han Solo is or that how a Star Wars movie starts. If you lined up 20 Star Wars fans that considered themselves casual fans, and you asked them, "Hey, how does a Star Wars movie start?" They'd be like, "Oh, the thing going off into space and did," and you say, "Okay, who made the music?" I bet half of them would be like, "I don't know." I mean, because
with that said, without John Williams doing it, do they get to use the fanfare?
They're Disney. They paid $4.5 billion. They can use whatever they want.
Well, I get that, yeah, but do you think they go to the well and have somebody else recompose that theme?
No, there's no way. I mean, you can't redo that music. You have to have it.
That's what I say. So that means John Williams would have to be get credit for it, but he said he's not doing anything.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like playing a cover tune on an album.
Either way, know? Scroll, no scroll, John Williams, Han Solo with a full chest, whatever. regardless of how that movie starts, how awesome do you feel that if the first thing that happens, scroll, no scroll, you just hear,
yeah, like
you just get the, yeah. Mine was horrible because my throat sucks.
What's that?
I've been coughing the whole time, dude. My throat feels like crap.
How awesome would it be, dude, if all of a sudden the first thing you hear is like some weird space bird?
Man, if the first thing you get is a Darth Vader breath, you're sold for the whole movie,
right? Or some guy walking in like a really dark, like forest or a hallway or something. Just he's completely freaked out, and you see nothing. He's like totally in shadow. All of a sudden, you hear the and it's like, so you know, like he's being stalked by Vader. You're like, oh, it's happening already.
That was way better than mine.
Yeah. And as I was about to do it, I was like, please don't screw it up. Please don't screw it up. Please don't screw it up.
I've been trying for an hour to not just cough so loud to get the crap out of my throat, and then I tried to make a Darth Vader thing, and it was.
He's like, check out my Vader noise.
Some podcasters believe in soundboards, but us,
nah,
right.
Needs that crap.
Technology, flippity flu.
Back in my day, we didn't need soundboards. No,
No, not really.
Not really, no. Yeah, no, that would definitely be awesome if it starts out with Vader. But you know, thinking about it though, it would be kind of cool to have it wait for him to come in and have him be that shadow hanging over the whole thing.
Yeah,
you're waiting for him, not as much as you had to wait for Luke Skywalker in Episode 7, but you know.
That's how Rogue One ends.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Vader's out on an island.
And he triggers the lightsaber, and then the credits hit. You're like, oh, come on! 2 in a row, man. That would tie the characters together, though.
True.
Luke ended up on an island. Why'd he do that? Because Darth Vader ended up on an island. Son of a bitch.
Rogue One totally stole the idea from Episode 7, man.
Right?
Yeah, but okay, the Star Wars fanboy in me is already connecting the dots to make this palatable about the stunt suits and everything. I do like the idea that probably Vader's going to be chasing them the whole time. Like they might get the plans like right off the bat in this movie, and the rest of it is just the chase to try to see if they can get them to Princess Leia. You know, so it could just be a whole movie of Vader chasing them down and hunting them relentlessly, kind of similar to what the Empire did with Empire Strikes Back. Mm-hmm. But I would love it, and I would totally buy into it if they show Vader kicking all kinds of ass in the suit, being violent, being physical, doing all this stuff, and then something happens to him in that pursuit that kind of injures him or limits him in some way that explains why he's no longer able to behave or act that way in the future movies. Or, like you said, he's so vicious, he just doesn't even need to anymore. Just the mystique alone is enough to just strike fear in the hearts of all the enemies of the Empire.
Yeah, that was an awesome idea, Steve. I think I agree with that one.
That would be the greatest Vader.
Wouldn't it be?
Oh, God. I would love that character so much more. Oh.
Do you think that they might pull some stuff from, and I may be bringing up something that only I've heard, and I own it if you guys want to borrow it, but do you think that they might bring some stuff out of the radio drama that they did for Episode 4?
You'll have to clue me in. I'm not sure what you mean.
The radio drama doesn't start right when, you know, the Tantive 4 is getting attacked and they board it and stuff. It starts earlier in the script, stuff that they cut out of the movie where they end up on Alderaan with the Organa family, and Vader is like kind of like a minion for Grand Moff Tarkin, and so it starts before, like I said, it starts before the Tantive 4, and it does have some stuff about them tracking rebels and whatnot. So I own it. I actually got it. It's like 10 CDs or something. I got it for like $8 at the exchange. It's awesome. But anyway, I really wonder if they're going to pull anything from that, because it is from the original script. It does touch on what was going on between the Empire and the Rebels a little bit before Episode 4 starts. So I wonder if they'll touch on that as kind of like a throwback, kind of an homage to the really old school stuff. I mean, that's George Lucas's original script, so I wonder if they'll touch on that.
They could, because there's probably very few people that really know about all that. And then you know, think about what Disney has and hasn't considered canon, you know, if that's even in the timeline according to the mouse at the top of the pyramid now, you know, so
right?
Who knows?
They love pulling in from old material sources. I mean, Rebels this season is doing that like crazy. Pretty much if it ever showed up in Knights of the Old Republic video game, they're wedging it into Rebels somehow.
Is that where that stuff comes from?
A lot of it, yeah. I've been, well, that's what podcast listening will do for you, is it'll clue you into the stuff you never knew about. I never played the game, so I wasn't aware of any of this stuff, but yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, a lot of like the ships from the Princess Leia episode that just came out, and a whole bunch of other references are coming straight out of was it the Defenders of Concord Dawn, the Protectors of Concord Dawn?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Whatever, that whole Concord Dawn business, that's straight out of the game too, apparently. So they're just, anytime they feel like dipping back in the well, they're going for it. So I would love to actually see them at least use that as inspiration, if nothing else.
I think it'd be cool, because like I say, it's original script stuff, but it just was stuff that was extraneous in terms of getting the movie down to, 2 hours, 2.5 hours at the time, Episode 4. And it's pretty cool story stuff. I mean, it sets up why, these two factions are fighting. So I get why it wouldn't be necessary in Episode 4, because it's kind of obvious where, obviously the stormtroopers are bad and they're shooting the good guys, and then the big evil, giant Lord Vader comes on and says, "Where are those plans you stole?" Okay, that sets it up within the first few minutes, so you don't have to have all that backstory. But throwing some of that into Rogue One would be really cool way to bring it back and really tie it to Episode 4, because it's actually something that was a part of Episode 4 in the script.
Yeah, and you think about it, when Vader goes into the suit, Anakin disappears from the galaxy, and nobody knows how or why. I'm sure it's just swept under the rug in the general Great Jedi Purge that Palpatine sold to the universe. And then
the only person that comes close is Obi-Wan. He assumes Anakin's dead anyways.
Right. So there's this Vader character running around that most people don't know about or see even. He's kind of like the boogeyman. So he's got no reputation yet. There's rumors, but by the time you get to episode 4, everyone just poops themselves whenever they see Vader or even hear about him, even within the ranks of the Empire. So they've got to do something to explain. I assume that the time between 3 and 4 is when Vader is building his legend. And this story could tell about some of his most horrific acts that really cement him as the ultimate threat to everybody on his side and against.
What if Rogue One is not only the story of how they steal the Death Star plans, but also how the rebels are first introduced to Vader, period?
That's a very interesting idea. See, all of this, having just rewatched the last 2 episodes of Rebels and seeing that trailer that they put out for the second half of this season, I don't know how much they're going to reserve for Rogue One and how much they're going to tell on the Rebels cartoon, because they are really butting up against it with, having Vader appearing in that cartoon. So how much are they going to tell of his story in the cartoon, and how much are they going to let go on for Rogue One?
Because there's no rebels exist in Rebels other than
it's the start of it. Yeah.
So it's 4 people. There is no resistance kind of army going against him whatsoever right now. So
they're starting to build their numbers, but it's still far too small. And I think they even said in Rebels Recon and other places that episode 4, the confrontation with stealing the Death Star plans and then making the assault on the Death Star itself, that was the first major offensive the Rebels ever tried to mount against the Empire, because they simply didn't have the means before then. That was like everything they had thrown all at once. That was a do or die gambit right there. So, yeah, whatever exists of the Rebels on the cartoon as it leads up to this film, and whatever exists in the movie itself is got to be smaller than what we saw in episode 4. So it really is a really ragtag bunch.
You know what would be really cool, and they can't do it because there's going to be multiple seasons of Rebels after Rogue One, but it would be so cool if they took Ahsoka Tano and waited to have that duel that we all know is coming between Vader and Ahsoka on Rebels, and that's in Rogue One. And she's like one of the main rebels trying to steal the Death Star plans, and it builds up. It's like that's like one of the main climaxes of the film, is not only getting the Death Star plans, but that epic battle that we've been waiting to see between Ahsoka and Darth Vader. It would be fan service more for the people that watch the cartoons, which I know is not nearly as big of a faction of fans, but just as somebody that's into that, and I was never nearly as big of a Clone Wars fan as you are, but I love that they're building that up. That, Ahsoka was gone for so many years, now she's back, and now Anakin is Vader, and it's this inevitable clash, and I love that. And I think it would be even cooler if they crossed from the cartoon into an actual movie and had it come to a head there. I mean, they can't because of the way the timing's going to be, because you're going to show that happen, and then you've got more seasons of Rebels that happen before Rogue One that are going to come out after Rogue One, so you can't technically do that. It would be hard to do anyway. I would love that.
I like Ahsoka in the Clone Wars, but I really like how they're doing her character now in Rebels.
I agree.
And yeah, that would be great to see a live action version. Like, you'd have to get the right actors to do it, but if they pulled that off the right way, that would be awesome, because I really love how they're taking her character in Rebels right now.
Well, if there's a character you're going to pull from the cartoons and bring into the live action universe, it's going to be Ahsoka. She's survived 7 seasons of cartoons now. She has cemented her place in the lexicon now. Like you said, she's not that big of a character compared to the movie people, but I don't know about that, because she's had so much screen time now. Her character is so well fleshed out, and generations of fans have grown up on the cartoons before the movies now. I think that she would have enough gravitas to be able to hold her own in the movie universe.
It would definitely create that Vader who's absolutely like the darkest kind of evil, because if you bring Ahsoka in and then he slaughters her, I mean, that's just, for the fans of the cartoons,
because you can't pull that off in the cartoons. You'd have to pull something like that off in a movie. Because
it's either in the we already know, based on Vader continuing on, that Ahsoka either just loses a battle and disappears, or just plain disappears, or she gets killed. So, and when you build her up as kind of like one of the original rebels, like one of the, creators of the Rebel Alliance, which is what she is in Rebels, and Vader just completely cuts her down, I think that would be an amazing way to do it.
Yeah, that could be really compelling. And like you said, though, the timing of the cartoon versus the movie, it'd be very interesting to see how they work that out from a storytelling standpoint regarding, when do they release this bit of the story versus that bit of the story to keep it compelling on both sides.
It's going to be a tough call for them regardless, with Rogue One coming out and the way Rebels going on, depending how many seasons you want to carry that TV show out. Is Rogue One supposed to fall in the timeline? Like, is it 2 seasons of Rebels, then Rogue One, then more seasons of Rebels? Or is all of Rebels supposed to be before Rogue One in the timeline?
All of Rebels is supposed to be before Rogue One, to my understanding, which is why the Ahsoka thing would be difficult. But the one thing they could do, though, is introduce into Rebels the characters that are in Rogue One. So you could start having like crew from Rogue One in the Rebels cartoon. I
could see that happening, actually. The way they're tying stuff together now is so amazing that I could absolutely see them using the second half of Rebels in the season to lead into Rogue One. It would be such a natural handoff.
Yeah, and it really depends, like I said, how many seasons they plan on going. Is Rebels going to be a keep making it till people stop watching it kind of thing? Or are they already like, hey, this is going to be 3 or 4 seasons and we're canning it, regardless kind of thing?
Well, they've been vague with the timeline, but season 1 began, they said specifically 5 years before A New Hope. So unless they're going to jump around in a timeline or do some sort of weird thing with the chronology of it, 5 seasons is the most you can have. And who knows, with all the stuff that they're teasing in the second half of the second season trailer, maybe they're kind of telling all their big storylines now, because maybe the real surprise is that they're not coming back for a season 3. Maybe they're running right up to Rogue One, and that's enough of the episode 3 to 4 gap to fill in, and then they're going to move forward with a new show that goes into the sequel trilogy somehow.
Unless they're doing Rebels like 24.
Right?
2 seasons of Rebels has been like 3 days.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it could be, though, because with these missions they're on, it's not like,
not like it takes
6 months later, it's not like one season is 1 year's worth of time. I mean, it could be a month or something.
We stole some power converters. All right, what'd you do with the other 23 hours of the day, stupid?
Exactly. I mean, and I really hope they don't do, like...
The other 23 hours Ezra whining and crying about something.
He turns into Kylo Ren.
No, hey, he does have that green tri-blade lightsaber in the trailer.
Yes, he does.
I haven't watched the trailer for the second half of the season yet.
It'll blow your mind. It's amazing.
I'm going to check that out as soon as we're done here.
It definitely feels like Clone Wars continued. They're getting so much more into prequel tie-ins than original trilogy tie-ins with that trailer. It's just
But then like you said about the chronological, the time order, the big sell at the end of the teaser trailer is pretty much, lack of a better thing, of the Ahsoka Vader showdown.
Okay.
So
I just hope they don't do a like flashback stuff like you mentioned, because they did that in Clone Wars and it drove me nuts. I'm like, what am I watching? Like, when does this happen? And then I had to go online. Like, we found that one thing where someone actually sat down and wrote every single one of the episodes from seasons 1 through 6 and numbered them. And if you want to watch it in chronological order, you have to watch like season 3, episode 2, and then season 1, episode 10. And I mean, that was just stupid. I'm like, what is that about?
Oh God, yeah, it hurts too, because Gwen and I have gone back and forth where we'll watch. We'll binge watch it for a few days, and then you don't go back to it for a few weeks, and then you put on what Netflix tells you is the next episode. Then you're like, what the hell? Like,
that happened to me.
This like, and then you start going through all the episodes. And you're like, no, like, we've seen this before. I know we've seen it before, but you get confused because they're starting to tell you something you saw 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, true, but I got kind of lost, and I'm still in the middle of season 5, and
I think we're still stuck in 4, maybe 5 or something. I don't even remember right now.
See, JT, especially, you've got to get through Clone Wars season 5, because I have been waiting for 3 years now. literally 3 years to talk to you about the episodes you've yet to see. It's driving me crazy.
I was just about to go back to it, and then Rebels came on, and I was getting into that and rewatching those, so I kind of put it down. But I strangely enough have some time on my hands lately, so I should probably go.
Don't forget, AJ, he's still in a grieving process from episode 7. So.
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
And
it's like there's a hole in his heart, you know?
See, I wasn't even going to mention. I was trying to be nice and just say you were grieving. But
see, for our outro music for this episode, you should do the Extreme song. There's a hole in my heart, it can only be filled by you.
Can only be filled by a lightsaber.
Right? That old spinach dip.
Yeah, so to wrap up the Vader thing, though, how cool is it to know that we live in a world right now where somewhere on a countertop in a props department is a Darth Vader helmet being used on a regular basis, and there are stormtrooper helmets right next to it.
Yep.
Oh, I love it so much.
That is going to be amazing. I seriously can't wait for that movie. So.
I can only hope for this vicious crap jerk, like, just throw my power everywhere Darth Vader. Oh,
I'm
God.
with you. I'll be sitting right next to you in the theater if that happens, and we'll be those guys in the theater just high-fiving going, yeah! Every time he does something silly like that, I'm like, yes!
Yeah, no prequel bashing intended, but I always felt that Vader's story was complete enough with 4, 5, and 6, so I'm looking very much forward to getting another movie installment of that Vader, not the prequel saga Vader.
I'm gonna end it on this with my stuttering. I'm gonna end it on this. We were talking about we've never seen it. We've never seen him do things like that. Rated R, yada yada. We did see Anakin Skywalker decapitate someone. So it's already been put on screen. He decapitated the Sand People in Attack of the Clones.
And Lord knows he is going to be very emotional coming off of...
Yeah, Dooku as well.
Coming off of the whole Padme news. If we're getting that guy that just found out about Padme and is going to be extremely pissed off.
Yep.
Oh, man.
All right, well, that should just about do it for another episode of the Nerfherder Council. I would definitely like to thank John at Blockade Runner for giving us our first feedback. It's much appreciated.
Definitely.
So go check those guys out at blockaderunnerpodcast.com. You can find us at nerfherdercouncil.com. We're also on Facebook. On Twitter, we are at NHC Podcast. On the different apps and websites and all that good stuff, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play coming soon. We are on Spreaker, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and Podbean. You can find us at Dog Pound Jedi, at Drake Adams 579, at JSteve1005. If you want to hit us up with some feedback, it's feedback@nerfherdercouncil.com, or we do have personal email addresses, JT@nerfherdercouncil.com, AJ and Steve. So just our name at nerfherdercouncil.com once we get our contact page up.
Exactly.
So want to thank everybody for listening. We've had some pretty cool comments on our Facebook page, so I want to thank everybody for checking it out and spreading the word. Please tell everybody about the podcast. Hope you guys are digging it. I am your host, JT. He is AJ.
Yes, I am.
And that is Steve.
Also, I am.
And we will catch you next time.
Is never gonna get us past that blockade.
This bucket's got a few surprises left in her. Plus me and Chewie are on it. Ain't that right, Chewie?
Hell yeah, you my nerf herder.
You my nerf herder.